Thanks, Louis, and thanks everyone else for joining. As Louis mentioned, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the sustainability reporting asset that's been created and uploaded to the IBM Accelerator Catalog. First, I'll show you how and where to get it. Then I'll give you a brief overview of how it's structured, and I'll talk through some of the configuration options, as well as the various methods for bringing data into the model. Also, how the configured framework can then be used to assign actions and ownership within the same tool. As this is only a starter asset that needs further development to be made specific to each organization, I'll then discuss some of the other planning analytics features that could also be brought in to enhance the model further. So, with that in mind, the first step is to work out where we get it. So, for those who don't know, the IBM Accelerator Catalog is a collection of assets that have been pre-built and are ready to be downloaded for free to be used in your applications. They can either be used in their own right as a complete solution, or often they are simply a proof of concept or starting point which you can use to develop further. But they are a very useful source of information, especially if someone has already solved the problem that you're looking at. They can be found by going online to the IBM Accelerator Catalog and choosing which specific technology you're working with. In this case, it's planning analytics. And if we look, we can see there are 212 assets available for us to choose from. Two of the most recent ones being the sustainability models we're going to discuss today. If I was to select it, you have the option to download, which will include the server assets, being cubes, views, dimensions, etc., as well as the planning analytics workspace, books and views that are used in the interface. There are details about how you can install it, and there's also some extra information like videos, so it's very simple to get hold of and start having a play. So now I'll show you what it looks like. So if we go into Planning Analytics, we can see that the Sustainability Reporting asset has been downloaded and included in our model. Fundamentally, sustainability reporting is simply a case of defining a selection of indicators that your company will track and report on, and then collecting, storing, and analyzing the data of these indicators in a logical model. Planning Analytics with Watson is perfect for this, as its core capabilities of structured data storage and calculation, speedy aggregation, and reporting and visualization that comes out of the box makes it the ideal tool. This asset provides a framework to get started on your sustainability journey, but it's not prescriptive about what goals the organization needs to focus on or the measures and indicators within those goals. We have used the 17 Sustainable Development Goals defined by the UN as our starting framework, but there are many other frameworks available, with more likely to be developed in the future. The goals are used as a way of grouping together similar measures and indicators in the model. Organizations should use this framework to decide which goals are applicable to them. They can then go further and identify indicators and dimensionality required to monitor progress towards these goals. Each goal has an associated cube. The cubes will start the same and can then be configured depending on the data that is going to be collected. Behind each tile, there is a dashboard displaying the data which can be used for analysis and tracking progress towards the entity's targets. These example dashboards use standard planning analytics features such as explorations and visualizations and can be synchronized across dimensions and designed to display the information however you want. But the main thing to note with this model is the no-code configuration options that are available. So, if we select Climate Action, which is a goal applicable to most organizations, we can see how this has been configured. We have a selection of visualizations and explorations. This top one shows the actual emissions versus target for the 3 years. This pie chart shows the split of emissions by asset type. This heat map shows the contribution to emission reduction by each entity across the different asset types. And the table shows the numerical data for the measures by entity, as well as scorecard metrics for the status and trend of each one. These visualizations are all quickly configurable in Planning Analytics using the intuitive drag and drop interface. So, for instance, if we wanted to change the area chart to something else, we can go into edit mode and select an alternative from the options available. So, selecting a radial chart, We then need to tweak the automatic results to get the view we want. Here, I want one circle for each year and the colours to represent the different gas types. All the actions can quickly be undone, however, if we change our mind. So, now looking at how this cube has been configured, we can see that there are an entity and year dimension which is shared across the whole model to ensure that the data is collected consistently. In the background, each goal is defined in one cube. The cubes are structured in a similar way, with an indicator dimension representing the items that you're going to track, and the shared dimensions of entity, year, period, version, etc. And then 3 custom dimensions. These can be quickly configured depending on the required dimensionality of the data. In this case, the measures relating to CO2 emissions have been configured by asset type, so splitting between buildings and plant and equipment, and by gas type, between CO2 and the others. The data and structures of every organisation are different, so using Planning Analytics with Watson gives you the ability to quickly reflect your organisation and your data, rather than trying to crowbar it into a pre-built solution. To configure the metadata for each goal, the model uses the Settings cog to expose some of the standard Planning Analytics modelling functionality in a structured way. So we can see that the options for customizing the model are available in this workbook. We can manage the indicator dimension, the entity dimension, as well as the 3 custom dimensions that are used in this cube. If we have a look at the indicators, we can see the ones that have already been set up. But as reporting develops over time, we may need to add a new indicator. Say, for example, the percentage of our energy coming from solar power. So we can quickly add that here, and as soon as we do, it's available for data storage and reporting against. We also have the option to give each measure some attributes. In this case, we have some attributes for managing multi-language and also mapping to an alternative reporting framework, the GRI, which I'll show you in a bit. If we have a look at the entity dimension, we can see the entities that have already been set up and the group structure. But it may be the case that we want to group some of the entities in a different way. So, for instance, there could be a new region which is only made up of entity 1 and entity 3. So we can quickly set up that roll-up and add the entities to it as children. This dimension could also be used for departments or divisions as well as entities. This new roll-up will now be available for selecting and reporting in our dashboards. If we have a look at the custom dimensions, we can see how Custom 1 has been set up for the asset type and Custom 2 has been set up to reflect the gas type. Custom 3 dimension has not been used, and so this is left with just a single member to store the data. By renaming the custom dimensions, we can use the caption feature in Planning Analytics, which means that the dimensions will show with the business-friendly name, rather than the actual dimension name of Custom 13 space 2, which only makes sense to the modeler. Going back to our dashboard now, we can see that Region 1 is available for selection, and also that the solar percentage measure that we've added is now displayed on our dashboards, so ready for data storage and reporting. If we look at the group position, we can see that the status indicator for CO2 emission compensation is currently showing red. And drilling down into the data in a bit more detail, we notice that the figures for entity 1 don't appear to have been entered. So that's a good opportunity to talk about data entry. Data can be brought into Planning Analytics through all of the usual methods, the most simple being manual entry. Some of the reports you will receive and the data will come in PDF files or exports from third-party systems, so they will need to be entered manually. We can create a data entry exploration view and expose this to the users for them to fill in. Comments can be added to cells in a similar way to Excel. In terms of auditability, Planning Analytics already logs all the data entered with a record of what was updated, by who, and when. In this example, I've also embedded a box folder into the Planning Analytics workspace, so the user can save down copies of the reports and evidence that have been used. They can then provide a link back to the document, so it's ready for the auditors. We could also enforce workflow options, such as tagging the data as approved or awaiting review. While I'm here, I'll just quickly enter entities one's missing data for CO2e compensation, which hopefully should improve the position on the group dashboard. Other options for getting data into Planning Analytics include a live link to other systems such as ERP or the HR system for headcount or gender equality data. This could be brought in at the click of a button by the powerful ETL tool included in Planning Analytics, Turbo Integrator. Flat files such as CSV or text files could be dropped in, and an import process could be run to read and load the data. Back on the dashboard, one of the other options built into the asset is action management. After configuring all the indicators, it may be appropriate to assign actions and accountability for managing the progress towards the sustainable goals. Here, as an example, actions could be logged against specific measures along with the responsibility, timescales, and budget available. Finally, as there are likely to be alternative reporting frameworks other than the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we can map the indicators to alternative frameworks to ensure that all the reporting can come from the same place. This is an example of a simple Planning Analytics for Excel report showing the metrics grouped according to the Global Reporting Initiative framework. So, I hope that's given you a high-level introduction to this asset and how you could configure it for your specific business or customers. Other Planning Analytics features that could be brought in to further enhance the solution include things like security, only allowing users to view and enter data for certain entities, goals, or measures. Workflow management could be built to drive the timely collection of the data and include review and approval steps. Planning Analytics for Excel gives users access to all the data in this model in a fantastic Excel add-in, so they can use it in a familiar environment and do their own reporting. AI forecasting is available in Planning Analytics with Watson to predict future results based on trends seen in the actual data to help set achievable targets. And also IBM Decision Optimization and integration with Cognos Analytics for reporting, but I'll let Sasha and Andy cover those off in more detail later on. And that's all from me. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand back to Louis.